Hi, Ian and I are members of Texas Rocket Engineering Lab, often shorthanded TREL. I am the Chief of Staff, and Ian is...
I'm Ian, I'm the Chief Engineer of Vehicles.
And yeah, we want to talk about what we kind of do. So we're going to kind of go about TREL, talk about our progress last year, and what we plan to do for the future. We are a lab where we focus on designing launch vehicles. Currently, we are on our first iteration named Halcyon. We have 112 students who last year alone put in over 95,000 hours in the school year, and that number is increasing every day. For example, we had a group of people out at our lab from 2 to 11 p.m. yesterday, just grinding away at some things we need to do before we can go step into vehicle operations. So currently, we have Halcyon, which is our first rocket. Our goal for Halcyon is to launch it to 35 kilometers, which would more than double the collegiate record for a rocket launch, a liquid rocket launch. Our next rocket is called Neptune. This rocket will be hopefully go 105 kilometers, and it will be the first collegiate group to send a liquid rocket to space, and also the first collegiate group to send to launch a pump-fed engine. And the ultimate goal of TREL is to get a 30-kilogram low Earth orbit payload, and also have a first stage that is reusable. From 2024 to 2025, basically we had 6 months where we started the build of the rocket, and we got it to our first launch attempt. 3 months from started build to a fully integrated vehicle. 4 months from start of the build to a completed mobile ground support equipment trailer. 2 months from initial simulation to FAA flight authorization, and 3 weeks to design, build, and activate our strongback to lift the rocket. 2 weeks to design, build, and activate our V2 release mechanisms, and 1 week to replace LabVIEW with an in-house software stack-up. We also had 4 integrated vehicle static fires within 3 weeks, and this was the largest student-built rocket in the world to ever static fire at the time. We had 3 static fires completed within 6 hours of each other. We'll have videos of that shown later. And 1 month to complete igniter development testing, having over 100 torch fires. We were also the first student-built liquid biprop rocket to have a fully guided control system, meaning no launch rail. It was fully self-guided, remotely controlled retracting strong back and claw, full thrust release mechanisms, cryo prop measurement systems, cryogenic COPV propellant tank, and a fully automated end-to-end launch sequence.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk through some of the individual progress from a lot of our different teams, and you get to sort of see some of the pictures of hardware. So shown here, you can see some of our primary structure builds. So on this image right here, this is prior to anything. This is our COPV tanks unbonded, just sitting there on the tables. And so we basically started with unintegrated, unbonded COPVs, completely unintegrated rocket structure, and we had sort of an issue with deciding if we wanted fins or no fins. The ultimate goal is no fins, but as we step up, we might need fins in the median. And our nose cone and recovery systems were completely undesigned and not built. So here you can see some of the progress. You can see us completing our vehicle structure. This is the full vehicle structure shown right here. This was over winter break. We all stayed and put in 40 to 50-hour weeks to get this done. And then also shown here is our TVC system being integrated, and then full engine aft end assembly right there, which is pretty sick. We were very happy to complete this. So fully bonded mated vehicle and static fins designed and built, racers integrated, everything integrated. And so this was over the span of about 2 months over winter break. We did all this work. And then, so another thing that was happening in parallel was our propulsion system, starting from these images. And I don't know if you've ever seen the plumbing on a rocket, but it does not, the end result does not look anything like this. So this was sort of our first iterations of our propulsion systems. So basically, I can read off each bullet point here, but the general consensus is that nothing was built or designed. And this was in the beginning of last fall, and then we grinded away, and these are what our propulsion systems look like now. So you have our T-slot structure that we insert into our airframe. You can see our engine assembly right here, and then some of the other assemblies here. And so basically all of our fuel and LOX press vent systems were built, all of our feed lines were built, fill lines were built. And so we basically went from nothing to a completely ready to launch rocket in about 3 months. Avionics software had like a crazy improvement as well. And so here you can see some of our avionics systems. This is our engine bay harnessing shown here. It's quite the mess. You can see some of this is our NO inner tank as well. And so we basically went from nothing to everything on avionics and software. We had flight software built beforehand, but it was not validated in any way. And so we basically switched from a LabVIEW ground software stack to a completely in-house made ground software stack due to just some scalability issues. And then we also developed completely in-house flight computers after we had a helium sensibility issue because we had MEMS oscillators on our commercial flight computers. And so they were dying during vehicle testing. And we also completely tested and built our GNC models and got FAA flight authorization. And we also ran a full suite of Monte Carlo simulations and really developed the maturity of our GNC simulations for our lab, which is a big point of weakness for college students is to actually have the GNC knowledge to get authorization from government organizations. And then
a problem we ran into that we really didn't expect was lift. Originally, it was kind of an afterthought. We just kind of figured that we'd have a crane sent out to the launch site or the test site, and that'd be enough. We realized after we had issues with the vendor and realized that then we did some math, realized that it actually wouldn't work. So we had to develop a fully in-house lifting method. We initially tried to use us to lift it, but rockets are pretty heavy, so we realized really quickly that that was just not possible. And we also we suffered a lot of setbacks as well because due to anchoring, it's very hard to anchor this into the ground, and we kind of thought that the weight would be enough at some points. We kind of thought that the anchoring that we had was enough, but we had to keep on scaling it up until we just decided to go overboard with it and anchor as much as we could. This is kind of what our lift method looks like now. We have this bottom one in the middle. This is our strong back and launch mount being lifted by a winch stand. We have the fully integrated rocket sit on the back of our strong back with a claw that kind of holds it down, and the entire launch stand rotates about a rod on the ground, and this is able to lift up the entire rocket. Maturing lift operations, we were able to basically lift it within the span of a minute. It took hours and hours of lifting it at our test site to 1 minute of just one person having a remote that held the winch in and held the winch out. And this was very this saved us lots and lots of time with everything. We didn't really have to worry now about lowering and lifting the rocket, taking us hours and losing days to have to do that. It's something that if we had to lower it to fix something real quick, it was easy. We were also able to out at our launch site was in New Mexico near White Sands. I'm not sure if y'all know. The winds get really bad. There was one day where the winds were about 30 miles an hour, over 30 miles an hour, and the rocket was just out there unwavering. The wind loading did nothing to it.
Yeah, so the real meat of last semester was our test operations. We had a fully built vehicle from our grinding over winter break, and it was time to get to testing. So shown here are some of the cool images we've got. So this is our igniter testing happening right before some of our first static fire attempts out at Spaceport. And here you can see one of the cold flows prior to static fire. So we're flowing LOX basically before we static fire to characterize our CDA. Another igniter is shown right here. We've got a pretty sick image. They're always cool to see. And here you have one of our first static fires shown here. So you have a pad cam, and we get these pretty sick images. So that's one of our first static fires. And here you see some of the exhaust at least, and we'll show you the real videos in a second. But yeah, we basically went from no vehicle to a static fired and ready to launch vehicle in that semester. So 15 LOX cold flows, 2 RP cold flows, igniter campaign, deluge FireX system validated. A lot of the deluge and FireX things are things that are not your first thoughts when you build a rocket. And now we've really gone through the process. And I think that's the big thing about Trail is that we go through the process and discover a lot of the things that you don't first see in the outset of building a vehicle, but are very present in industry. And then I think we have the videos. Oh, here's a drone shot of our last static fire. Pretty sick video. We'll show it in a second. And then you have like some of these other pad cams. And this is our control room right here. We have a trailer that sits like half a mile, I think, away. Yeah, we have like a lot of monitors. Yeah, so 4 total static fires completed, 3 of them being in one day. And we've hit our MR and jammer pressure flight targets, which is super sick. We're like pretty confident that we can then fly for 48 seconds, which is our burn time. And we are the largest student-built rocket to ever make it to the launch pad or static fire. So that's pretty cool. Okay. Oh, it's gonna work.
Yeah, do it back.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so that's our first static fire, I think, first successful static fire. We were very happy. If you can't hear the audio, but there's a lot of screaming. And then, this is in New Mexico, so quite far. It was quite the arduous trip every time. And then I think the next video is I think that's all the static fires are shown here. Yeah. So that was our first one. We hit an abort. There we go. Now we have audio. Abort on the second one. So that was our final static fire on that day. So like our first really, really successful one. It's the one you see on the left there. So we were super, super happy. And then this last video should show like some of our lift operation. I think it's hard to like get a grasp of it before you are really like shown the video because it was quite a difficult task to get right. Yeah, so this is like a video of our lift. Took a while to get to this state where we could just like easily do it with like a little to no human input. But we're very happy now, and it makes it like 20 billion times easier to like work with the vehicle. And basically we can just like stroll up, anchor the stuff, lift the rocket's activated, ready to go. Yeah. And all these videos are on like our social medias and stuff if you guys want to go see them. So now to like kind of walk through the high level of the lab and like our eventual goals. So right now we're on Mark 1 Halcyon. This is a pressure-fed Havoc 1 engine, so we call it. It's a blow-down configuration, so basically we pressurize the tanks from ground and we let them blow down. This is because we don't want the added complexity of like a press system on the vehicle, because they're really going for the minimum product here to validate that like we are a collegiate group, we can launch a rocket, we can break records. Our propellants are RP1 in LOX. These are saturated at ambient conditions. Our structures are COBV propellant tanks. We get this because we got a donation from Firefly. And then we have like a inner tank composite skirt design, and we have like pretty minimal access ports, which is another point of improvement. Something you wouldn't think about at the outset of building a rocket, but it is very hard to access things inside the rocket once you've integrated it. Our target apogee is 35 kilometers to double the current student liquid fueled by propellant rocket record. Targeted launch date is this winter. Mark II is our next rocket, Neptune. Goal here for the propulsion system is to use an electric pump-fed Havoc 2 engine. So basically e-pump is like the future of like, well, it's already the present of industry rocketry, and we want to bring it to be the present of collegiate rocketry. Quite difficult, no one's ever done this before, but we're already working on the design and build of this engine and the electric pump. And we want to have an on-vehicle bang-bang press system, which basically just, triples our apogee because we don't lower thrust. Still using RP1 and LOX, we're going to try and subcool it to increase performance because we're kind of bounded by our CPVs right now. And without building new tanks, we have to subcool our propellants. And we're using a Karagox igniter to eliminate hydrogen as a commodity because we don't want to work with hydrogen or buy hydrogen. I'm going to work on making our inner tank composites access ports way bigger because it's a mess to get in there and actually access the plumbing. Target apogee, 105 kilometers, go to the Kármán line. This was the original goal of the lab, and we're going to hit it on Neptune. first collegiate group to send a liquid rocket to space. A couple teams have been trying and failing, so we're really looking to break this record and be the first. Target launch date would be like fall 2026 tentatively. Mark III is like we're stepping up towards like the eventual orbital goal. Not quite there yet, but we're going to be basically working on like a turbopump instead of a e-pump, because e-pump for us, without building like our own batteries, is a very hard to scale propulsion system for like ground to orbit. And we'll still have an on-vehicle press system, and we're going to use hopefully throttling and on-vehicle purge to sort of tone in our reliability. And two-stage metallic structures, welded tanks. Basically, we're working our way towards like the real president of industry, and to have like much better iteration capability. And then, yeah, so basically target apogee there is like a 200-kilometer suborbital flight, not quite hitting the delta V needed for an orbital flight, but sort of getting our way to the point where we can understand the environments. Tentative launch date there would be like fall 2027. And thank you guys. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
We've got a good amount of time, and I know we've got some real experts in the room, so have at it.
I'm not an expert. I'm going to say I am highly impressed. And as a science fiction author, I would also say that the science fiction author, Robert Heinlein, would be highly impressed. This is an awesome job.
Thank you, thank you. We really have a lot of fun.
I'm just kind of wondering about your budget. Can you share some of that?
Yeah, so I think that's like one of the focal points of the lab. We started off with like quite a few donations, and sort of our original like leadership of the lab, so like a lot of years ago, didn't really understand how to use that budget, and so we're kind of left now with a lot more minimal of a budget, and left to like sort of deal with that. But it's not impossible. There are like lots of the collegiate teams are like pretty underfunded. And had to work with that, and we're pretty lucky to have some very good sponsors nowadays. We did like a fundraising this summer, and we raised like $200K, and so we're looking to like use that to launch this vehicle, start the build of the next vehicle, and from there, get more funding as we launch this one, and keep that process up until hopefully with our eventual goal is tailored around maybe being able to make money from our rockets.
So I have several thousand questions, which is probably better saved for a break. But a few things that'll come right to mind are, when you bond the composite interstages onto the tanks, they come with a glossy coating. How do you get adhesion on that bond without sanding off so much of the tank that it's a risk of failure at the bond line?
Yeah, so we do have to sand it a little bit to get some roughness, not a crazy amount, and then we also just hydroproof it after. Again, because we're not going to take any chances there. So we do have to sand it a little bit, though, yeah.
Have you done some kind of test to see what the strength of the bond line is?
We didn't have the capability for a while because we are very limited in our CBV strength, but we actually have a test article that we're going to be testing in like a week, to see how that goes.
We tested last night.
Oh, we tested last night.
And it held 3,000 pounds of shear.
Okay, so it held 3,000 pounds of
Very
shear.
good.
So
I think I'll save the rest for the break. Thank you.
Yeah, three things. What is a recovery system?
So we use just like a parachute recovery system, drogue chute, main chute, deployed at apogee.
And what instrumentation do you have on board?
We have a few different things in terms of like vehicle level. We have like an IMU for our attitude sensing. We have a GPS for thrust termination. And then we have like a lot of like internal sensors for pressure and temperature. I think like those are like the major sensors we have right now.
I mean, you have an altimeter.
We have like GPS, so yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Ever heard of Tripoli?
Sorry?
Ever heard of Tripoli?
Uh,
The high power model rocket?
oh, yes.
Okay.
Quick question from me. Do y'all get any advisors from outside of the university, like from SpaceX? I think you mentioned Firefly, which we're going to go visit on Thursday.
Yeah, we have like quite a bit. Firefly is like our primary industry mentor, but also we've sent like hundreds of students to the like full-time at a lot of different jobs. So we have a lot of like student mentorship from like, or like I guess alumni mentorship from people that we've sent to industry that have worked there for 5 years that are now helping us out again.
What level of exposure to rocketry have you had before you came to the university? Did you do anything in high school or before that, or is everybody starting cold?
I wouldn't say everyone's like this, but at least for me, and I think Noah as well, like pretty much nothing. Certainly not with liquids, and certainly I don't think I had anything with solids either. And so most people I think start out that way. A lot of people have done like robotics is the usual pathway, but rocketry is pretty minimal before college.
Yeah, like I think some people had experience with like tiny model rockets when they were kids, but in high school, the experience just isn't available for a lot of people. I know maybe of 1 or 2 people who were able to work on an actual, not a liquid rocket, but a high or a large scale solid rocket, and that's just not available at lots of schools, so people have to come in really cold.
We've got to have more questions. I know I've got plenty too, and we'll come back to more if we need to.
What sort of mission control center or telemetry, I mean, for the interaction once you get into suborbital or orbital, how are you going to track this?
Yeah, so we currently have what I would describe as a pretty primitive RF system. For our first flight, at least, this will like suffice. We get like telemetry. We're not really commanding too much. Our boards are all internal. We can command the boards from ground, but it's not really something we're relying on doing. In the future, though, we're gonna have to like really beef up our RF system. So that's something we're looking to like improve on greatly for like suborbital and orbital flights. Something that's currently like pretty primitive, I'd say, for our lab is just like our RF communication telemetry systems.
Well, to follow up on that, so what is your thinking for when you go orbital?
In terms of telemetry?
How will you maintain communication? Do you get access to an industry net or to NASA or what?
Yeah, honestly, we haven't looked too much into it. It is like a little far off for us at the moment. But I think we'd probably want to go towards like an industry net rather than RF eventually. But currently for like our lower scale flights, RF will do.
Yeah, just a quick lesson. The long lead item when you select what you're going to do your orbital, it might take up to 2 years to get an FCC license to have it radio the data down, whatever you're launching.
Okay.
So I would say well ahead of saying, oh yeah, now it's just time to start thinking about the payload. You need to think about that payload early on because they're going to have a lot to do to get approvals to even call home well before you decide to launch it. Just lesson learned.
Oh yeah, appreciate that.
That's coming from NASA lead technologist and PI on many missions, so it's key advice there. Do y'all have targets for where you want to work when you're done at the university?
Yeah, I'm interning at SpaceX. I interned last summer, interning again this summer, probably go there full time.
I'm currently searching still for a job, but I really like what SpaceX is doing with Starship right now. I love the mission, and I would love to work there, but really, honestly, anywhere that's going out of Earth's orbit, I would love to be a part of.
It seems to be a great time to get into this field because commercial is booming, and even military space is booming right now. Who else? Okay.
Good job, guys. Do you have any aspirations to be on board one of these rockets one day?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Maybe not one of our rockets, but I would love to be on a rocket someday.
Other questions? Anything else? All right. Well, how about a hand for a great program?